Resuming debate, the honourable member for Dartmouth Cole Harbour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I am pleased to get up and speak on an issue as important as this. I am somewhat intimidated to have to follow the member from Hamilton Centre who speaks on issues as important as this with a level of passion that I think we all should pay some attention to. I want to say how pleased I am to speak in support of the motion that was introduced by the member from Sackville Eastern Shore that reads as follows, that in the opinion of this House, the government should A, honour the service of Canadian military and RCMP veterans and their families by committing to not cut Veterans Affairs Canada in the upcoming budget, and B, provide programs and services to all military and RCMP veterans and their families in a timely and comprehensive manner. You know, it's interesting. I've been paying attention to the debate that's been going on today, and listening to members on the government side talk about how everything's fine. They're saying that if there are going to be cuts, not to programs and services, but to red tape, or somehow to the bureaucracy, is not going to affect the services and the programs. And I got to tell you that I find that hard to believe on a couple of levels. One is that 90% of the funding in Veterans Affairs goes to programs and services. So if you're going to cut that department by 5 to 10%, then I'd like to see how you're going to do it without affecting programs and services. That's number one. But the second part of that is that the government are arguing this point in a way to suggest that everything in the department right now is fine. And we know, we've heard the member from my colleague, a fellow colleague from Nova Scotia, talk in this House repeatedly about the problems that our veterans are facing trying to deal with this department. Again and again and again, cases come forward that are denied for no reason. There's not sufficient reason given. That seniors, the veterans that are now in a frail condition, that need support, that need services, whether that be health care or otherwise, are not able to get them, or are put through such a wringer of process, Mr. Speaker, that it just adds to their burden. It adds to their burden. And I'm telling you, it's you know, and it's been said by others much more eloquently than I, that these are the women and men that have fought, have served on behalf of this country, in defense of this country, and in defense of democracy, in defense of the UN, that have made unbelievable contributions to this country and to generations in this country for many years. And this government seems to be turning their back on them. And it's interesting, it's not just this government. This has been going on since 1998. The Auditor General said first in 1998 that claims are being denied repeatedly without sufficient justification. The veterans are not getting the services and the supports that they deserve. And here we are in 2012, and it's continuing apace. Just recently, in February, Guy Perron, the Veterans Ombudsman, said in a new report that veterans are not being given adequate reason why their requests for disability benefits are being turned down, and that they are not getting timely and comprehensive services and programs. Mr. Speaker, this is the recent Ombudsman. We've heard from the former Ombudsman. We've heard from Auditors General. I mean, the problem continues to exist in this province, or in this country, and I appreciate members opposite getting up and talking with their hand over their heart about how much they support and believe in veterans and people that serve in the military and for the RCMP. But that's not good enough. We have to do more than that. We have to work harder. we have to be committed to putting the money there, the resources in place, in order to make sure that people who we are quite prepared in this House, and well, we're not, but the government has been quite prepared to send these men and women and put them in harm's way in different parts of the world. And these people have gone willingly, made in many cases the great sacrifice, and we are not prepared to support them and their families when they return for that kind of commitment. I don't understand it. I can't fathom it. It's wrong, and we are trying to do everything we can to turn it around. Mr. Speaker, I believe I have 4 minutes left. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to just raise the, we've heard the government say, well, there's fewer veterans. There's fewer veterans, right? They're dying off. But in fact, there are more veterans. The veterans are continuing. I mean, they may just remember that they dedicated women and men to fight in Afghanistan. And recently, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Peter Stoffer, stated before a Senate Committee on National Defense, over 40,000 Canadian Forces members have deployed to Afghanistan since 2011. They've examined the situation, and they've suggested that 30% of those people, of the people studied, received some form of mental health care. 8% of those were diagnosed with PTSD, and a further 5% with some type of Afghan-related operational stress injury. What about those people? Don't they deserve support and services from this government, Mr. Speaker? We have to do something. We have to take a stand in this House to make sure that the government does the right thing. Its allies in the United States and the UK, they have said that the Veterans Affairs, that veterans will not be subject to austerity. And I would suggest that if the government is so convinced that its red tape review will in fact have the kind of effect it will and will recognize the savings it will, then they would be prepared to exempt this department and find the money elsewhere through those kinds of red tape. Even so, even if that's the case, Mr. Speaker, 2 minutes? I just want to mention that in terms of the kind of services and the fact that services aren't available, I have a constituent, 86-year-old David Kurtz, who's been trying for 2 years to get services from this government, from this department. This is somebody that's served in the Navy, the Merchant Marines, and the Merchant Navy, that has contributed public service-wise, that has been a contributor, and he has been getting denied services for 2 years straight. He's going to have to go before an appeal, undoubtedly, to get any action. The member from Sackville Eastern Shore is keeping an eye on this file, as I will, and we'll try to make sure that we get a positive resolve. Mr. Speaker, in light of the government's willingness to consider protecting some of this budget, I want to move the following motion, a motion seconded by the member for Saint-Jean, that the motion be amended by deleting all of the words after should and replacing them with the following. Honour the service of Canadian military and RCMP veterans and their families by A, committing to not cut Veterans Affairs Canada benefits in the upcoming budget, and B, committing every dollar identified through the strategic and operating review of the department to programs and services for military and RCMP veterans and their families, and C, providing programs and services to all military and RCMP veterans and their families in a timely and comprehensive manner. Mr. Speaker, I so move. Thank you.
Who's the second? The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've listened to the speech of the member from Dartmouth Cole Harbour, and I would like to remind the member that for the last 5 years, our government has increased its investment for veterans that more than $200 million, Mr. Speaker, and so is it expected to invest even more in our veterans next year. And the veterans will certainly agree with me that it is important to maintain our benefits to veterans. And I would like to ask him about his third amendment, which is about responding to our veterans in a timely and comprehensive manner. Well, Mr. Speaker, we agree, and that's why we want, and would the member agree that, is he agreeing that we want our veterans not to be taken into red tape? We want our veterans to not to be taken apart by a wasteful bureaucracy. Do the member agree that we need to do the best for our veterans, and in order to do so, we need to be able to streamline our processes as we are willing to do, and as this government has consistently been doing for the last 6 years by investing in our veterans, not into bureaucracy and red tape?
The honourable member for Dartmouth Cole Harbour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And let me say a couple of things. One is that in terms of the minister patting himself and his department and his government on the back, is flies in the face of the words of the Veterans Ombudsman in February of 2012, who said the veterans are not being given adequate reason why the requests for disability benefits are being turned down, and they are not getting timely and comprehensive services and programs. That's not the member from Dartmouth Cole Harbour telling you that. That is an official, an officer of this Parliament that is responsible for dealing with this issue on behalf of veterans. And he has said, as did the previous ombudsman, as have auditors general, that the government is not up to snuff. Even so, my amendment has said if the government is convinced that they can get savings through operational review, then do it, and let's make sure that the services and the programs do not get cut for veterans in this country.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my honourable friend for an amendment to this motion. I would hope that the members of the Conservative Party and all members of this House would now see that this motion should be passed. The honourable member for Sackville Eastern Shore has, as other members have mentioned, been a stalwart defender of the rights of veterans, and all of us are very concerned that declining veterans' benefits, declining to care properly for our veterans, is a growing national scandal. And I would love to see this amendment passed. And I ask my honourable friend who's moved this motion if he believes with this amendment this motion can have the unanimous consent of this House.
The honourable member for Dartmouth Cole Harbour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the question and the comments. The amendment is only intended to hold the government at its word. Members opposite, including the minister, have spent some time today talking about how they're not going to affect programs and services for veterans. That's what they've said. They said that they are going to go forward with the cuts, but they're going to do it through cuts to finding red tape and somehow mysteriously finding some saving. All I want to do, and I think members in this chamber would agree, is let's make sure that we hold the government's feet to the fire. You find through your operational strategic review savings, make sure it goes directly to the programs and services for veterans so they are not affected. Put your money where your mouth is, and let's get this done, and we can have a unanimous passage of this amendment.